and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, NASCAR, and sports betting home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down Talladega DraftKings as well as update the betting board with qualifying in the books, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's going on, Kyle? I'm just hoping that the Cup Series race lives up to what the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series gave us today, because those were some incredible finishes. And with the playoffs on the line and a couple of drivers, down a few points, i.e. William Byron after being penalized, I think we could see some absolute nutso type racing coming to the checkered flag tomorrow.
Well, and it's only a super speedway, so it was going to be very calm and mellow anyways. So
exactly.
There was no way there was going to be incidents or accidents or anything. So the Matt D won the Truck Series, AJ Allmendinger won the Xfinity. Both were really fun races. But we get the cherry on the ice cream or something today, Sunday morning. So very excited. A quick note, I'm sure people have seen it by now, but Alex Bowman will be missing Talladega. Noah Gragson will be filling in his seat, so we can look at how the odds have shifted for him, because it's been noticeable. But for the most part, not a ton of room. But let's jump in. Let's talk DraftKings. And let's build. I'm thinking we need to build two lineups this week, because it's Super Speedway week. Things get nutty, and we need to find a way to win some monies. As always with Super Speedways, it's a good idea to fade as much of the front guys as possible, because of the nonsense, because of the accidents, because of the crashes. Obviously, what we saw at Daytona, where the guy won the $7 multi-million-dollar parlay, like that's probably not going to happen again. But it could easily have a couple of those guys in there. So we should figure out how we want to attack this board. So let's start at the top in the 10K range, where we always do. We got Denny Hamlin starting third, Kyle Larson starting second, Ryan Blaney starting 19th at 10-4, Joey Logano starting 11th at 10-2, and Chase Elliott at an even 10K starting 16th. For me, it's really just Blaney and maybe Elliott, and that's kind of it from this range.
Yeah, it'd be difficult to get to Hamlin and Larson starting where they are. Because even if they win the race, this is not the kind of race where you're going to have somebody leading, 100 laps or anything like that. So you kind of have to pick from the back of the pack. So Blaney and Elliott make the most sense. And, you like Logano. We both think Penske cars are going to do really well during the race. So, starting 11th really isn't that bad.
No, I think that's fine. Like he's borderline for me. It just really depends on how you want to spend your money and all that stuff. Once again, another a good strategy is don't be afraid to leave money on the table, and couple $1,000 is not a big deal. The 9K range is really compelling. We obviously have Kyle Busch starting 26th at 9.9, Martin Truex at 22nd at 9.7. Your guy William Byron starting 9th at 9.5. Our guy Christopher Bell, of course, he gets the pole. We did not have a bet on that, but that's okay. And then Tyler Reddick starting 8th at 9,100. I think it's going to be really easy for people to go Busch, Truex, and then start moving down.
Oh yeah, no, I think it'll be really difficult for anyone to put Bell in their lineup starting on the pole. You do get some decent salary savings at just 9,300, but you don't see the pole sitter at these kinds of races win the race, and Bell has had some issues of late staying on track. So
yeah. All four tires on the car, Christopher. Remember that. I think the 8K range is where we really get some names. Obviously, our guy Bubba Wallace starting 27th at 8,900 is super popular, and is going to be an absolute smash. I'm going to find a lot of ways to use him. Ross Chastain, good to see the watermelon man qualify well, but not a DraftKings play. Eric Jones starting 12th is going to be interesting. Like
That's
we
a
both
tough
like
one.
him to perform well, and obviously starting 12th is not ideal, especially at Talladega, but it could be a way to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I don't hate it. And then Kevin Harvick rounds out the 8K range at 8,100. What's your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, like you said it, Bubba Wallace, 8,900, starting 27th. He's a guy who has as good a chance as anyone to win the race, regardless of where he's starting at this track. So I feel like he's a smash play, but that's probably going to be the same for over 60% of DFS players this week.
Yep.
So he might be somebody to avoid to get contrarian. And then it'll be interesting to see how Jones is utilized in lineups because starting 12th, a lot of people may get off him thinking that, oh, it's a little bit further up the board than we'd like to see him at, just expecting him to run kind of in that range all day. So he might be kind of a pivot play to go with that would kind of be, not something that everyone else is doing.
Yeah, or I don't even hate taking a name like Bubba Wallace, who people are going to be on, and then finding somebody who, like Eric Jones, who a lot of people might be avoiding, and then pair them together, and then you'll have a unique lineup and find a way to separate yourself a little bit. The 7K range is also really interesting. We have Austin Cindric starting 17th at 7,900 is really fun. Daniel Suarez starting 14th at 77. Our guy Christopher Buescher starting 23rd at 7,600 is going to be interesting. Brad K, I know you hate him, but 74.
Can't do it.
Starting 18th could be interesting. Austin Dillon always does well at these kind of tracks.
Fantastic.
Starting 20th, 7,200 makes a lot of sense. And Chase Briscoe, starting in the top 5, probably not somebody from a DraftKings perspective that we're going to get a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, the price is right for Briscoe, but where he's starting and with the just mass amounts of possibilities of the way this race is going to go, there's too much risk involved for somebody like him. It's clear that Buescher is probably going to be extremely popular. Cindric at starting 17th is probably also going to be somebody that finds his way in a lot of lineups, including ours, maybe. And then to me, Austin Dillon starting 20th, 7,200. That's a great value in my opinion.
100%. 6K range. Our guy Eric Almirola. I always like to use him at super speedways, but starting 4th, even at sub 7K, probably won't get there. Cole Custer is interesting. Michael McDowell starting 29th at 6,600 is interesting. I know you're going to give me some push for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 6,400, starting 25th. I'm going to show you his stats where he just does not finish races well, but could make some sense. Obviously, when he does well, it's usually at these similar tracks. So Ty Gibbs starting 10th is a no-go. Justin Haley starting 21st at 6,200, guy who's done pretty well at these kind of tracks. Corey LaJoie, an even 6K, rounds out the 6K range at 32nd. Another guy that I feel like is going to be a really easy click for us.
Yeah, LaJoie, value-wise, is probably one of my favorite guys on the board. Justin Haley is somebody who's probably being kind of glanced over because each time we've seen him in a super speedway event, he's had some talk leading up to the race and then just not really put together or just finished where we had expected. So maybe some people have gotten sour on him. So I think he's somebody that could make a lot of sense as everyone else kind of fades him going.
Yeah, and starting 20th, that's going to be like just close enough to the front where people are going to be a little extra like, I don't know.
Exactly, yeah.
Especially with LaJoie right there, $200 cheaper. Ricky Stenhouse, Michael McDowell, a couple $100 more. Like, it's so easy to get off him. So I think that's an interesting play. Landon Castle starting 33rd at 5,800 could be fine. Noah Gragson starting 7th. I know he's in Alex Bowman's car, but no interest there. Daniel Hemrick, once again, starting 13th, no interest there. Justin Allgaier, Ty Dillon, JJ Yaley, all starting in the 30s, all mid 5s. I think they all could make some sense depending on what you want to do. And we'll just round out the rest of the group with Harrison Burton, BJ McLeod, Todd Gilliland starting 34th at sub 5K. He's going to make a lot of people's lives easy. And then Cody Ware starting 37th. So,
I like Ty Dillon starting 30th. I think he's somebody who could, as long as he stays on the track and avoids trouble, he could, sneak into the top 20, top 15 even.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an outright. If you watched the show earlier this week, I have him on a top 10 bet at like plus 650. So I mean, clearly there's some potential there for him to finish well.
Okay. Well, let's build lineup 1. Then we'll build lineup 2. Then we'll move over, update the betting card, give you a best bet, and get the hell out of here. Let's figure out what we want to do. So I know he's going to be super chalky, but I think smashing Bubba into the first slot
All right.
is going to make the most sense. 8,900, starting 27th. I think we can be a little unique as we kind of go. So I think that's where I want to start.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate that at all. I like Bubba coming in this week. I think the next one, just for me, in terms of where I want to go, not necessarily where I value him, we got to go down to Austin Dillon, starting 20th. Yeah. He runs
Easy
too well.
clicks. Easy clicks. Speaking of easy clicks, Michael McDowell, starting 29th, 6,600. We've seen him pop. We've talked about him, I feel like, every week for the past month, 2 months, where he's elevated as a driver. His car is clearly a little bit better, and he's just consistently finishing stronger than he used to. So easy click.
Yeah, I mean, to continue the trend of building this lineup backwards, we're going to go with the last guy shown right there, Corey LaJoie, starting 32nd, 6K. He makes too much sense from a possibility standpoint.
Yep. I think we need to be a little bit different. I think so. Ty Dillon makes some sense. Todd Gilliland makes some sense. And then Justin Haley. I'll throw Justin Haley in, starting 21st. And then I'll let you make the decision on kind of the last spot. Obviously, we have a ton of salary, so we can get literally anyone we want. But also, don't force anything that you don't want just to spend the money.
No, so I was going to let it play out to see what kind of salary we still had, but I love him this week. It's pretty much a super speedway annual event here. Ryan Blaney starting 19th at 10-4 with this particular lineup build. I feel like makes a lot of sense because he could jump up to the front, midway through, maybe early on in stage 1 and kind of stay there, along with Bubba kind of coming up towards the rear, getting into like stage 2 or something. So I think we have a good build of potential and it's like safer if there's such thing as super speedway.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like Bubba, Austin Dillon, and Ryan Blaney all have very legitimate shots at winning the race. I think Michael McDowell was kind of a tier down, and then LaJoie and Haley, I don't think we expect either of them to win. But if they pulled like a 7th, like I don't think either of us would be completely shocked. And we've seen them do even better than that. So we'll save. I was just going to say,
outside of like the Rick Ware Racing and like BJ McLeod finishing inside the top 10, I don't think there's anybody in the field this week that will be a surprising finisher as a top 10er because we know the way super speedways go. And one thing to keep in mind is that the spring race was the first race at Talladega, I think since 2014 or something, that didn't have a caution coming into like the last 10 laps of the race. I mean, I think it ran green for over the last 50 laps or 40 laps or something, but it was an extended period of clean driving. And now that we're in the playoffs, I can almost guarantee that is not going to happen.
Well, yeah, especially with Denny. Denny's big mad. He wants to take a couple people out. Daniel Suarez is big mad. People are not happy.
Like, William Byron too. I mean, if you get penalized for something, why don't you just make it worth it and just really hit a guy to make it worth it? Like,
and we've seen Noah Gragson turn left on the straightaway, so he does not have any issues with spinning people out. All right, Brian, I made the first pick last time, so I'll let you make the first pick this time. I think we should build I'll let you decide, but I think Bubba free or Bubba and like really crazy would be the way to build this.
All right. Man, it's so hard. Like these super speedway races are really difficult.
I mean, you could spend as much or as little. You can go all the way to the bottom if you want.
We're gonna start with Eric Jones in this lineup. Starting
my first pick. Go ahead.
Not ideal, but
no, I like it. It's a unique way to build. And I'm gonna go with Kyle Busch. I know he hasn't been running quite as well, but finished 3rd here in the spring race. A really, really talented driver. Has success on super speedway tracks. I think he is a fine play, especially at starting 26. Like he's another guy that could start near the back and all of a sudden is, are battling for the lead within, stage 1 or stage 2.
All right, to quote Rat here, we're going round and round with Ricky Spinhouse as the next addition to this lineup.
Are you even old enough to know who that is?
That's the music. That's the era I like. 60s and 70s.
Ugh, Brian. They're an 80s hair band, Brian. Come on. All right, so we have Eric Jones, we have Kyle Busch, we have Ricky Stenhouse, we have 25K remaining.
It's kind of gross, to be honest with you, but that's what super speedway lineups win.
This is how you build a terrific super speedway race. If you want to put one guy in who's starting near the front, like that's fine. But did you know that Christopher Bell started on the pole in the last race too in the spring? And we didn't. I'm just mad at us. We didn't take advantage of it.
He won. The thing is that he's ran well at all of these races. It's just he can't stay on the track. He's always caught up in one of the big ones, or something happens with his pit crew or something. We've talked about it numerous occasions. The dude is clearly, probably the best Toyota driver on track. Just he can't complete races, I guess you could. It's a weird dynamic going on.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem when you're trying to race a whole race and not just part of it. Yeah. I put Michael McDowell in. He's too hard for me to not click. Starting 29th, 6,600. What's not to like? Yeah.
And then, all right, so I think we're going to go further up the board here for my next pick, and somebody who has been really hot and mired with controversy coming in. That's William Byron, starting 9th, 9,500. He definitely has the speed to get to the front to lead, 20, 30 laps this race, maybe the last lap of the race too.
I think because we're using Jones and Byron, who are both starting in the front, we need to go to Bubba. Just because, like, starting where he's starting, where he's potentially finishing, I think he's an easy click. I think Chris Buescher starting 23rd makes sense, but I think Wallace's upside is higher, and he's starting 4 spots farther back. Same with Kevin Harvick. I just like Austin Dillon, maybe, but like I don't know. I just think because we're using Byron and we're using Eric Jones, Bubba.
I just don't know how many people are actually going to roster both of those guys, especially Jones, because
right,
like, you know what the potential is, but you also know what the floor is with.
Oh yeah, no, this lineup has 5 or 6 drivers that could win the race, and 5 or 6 drivers who could be out before stage 1 is over.
They could all be taken out in the first wreck of the day.
Yeah, I think going to Bubba with the 2 guys we have is absolutely the move. So
all right,
I will save this lineup. I will enter it in some contests, and as always, we will review it on Wednesday when we review the carnage that was our betting card, that was our DFS lineups, and get you set for pre-qualifying numbers. Speaking of pre-qualifying numbers, let's take a look at the names we have so far. So I have 3 outrights. I have Joey Logano at 12-1, Austin Cindric at 18-1, and Eric Jones at 30-1. Brian has Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, and Eric Jones. I have Eric Jones top 10, Austin Dillon top 10, Austin Cindric top 10. You notice a pattern here: Michael McDowell top 10, Bubba Wallace top 10, Corey LaJoie top 10, and my best bet from Wednesday was Joey Logano to top 10. Brian and I also have our show bet of I have Joey Logano, Brian has Ryan Blaney, which good luck.
And that was my best bet from last week, or from earlier in the week.
He really wants to double down and hope that's probably the move. Eric Jones top 10, Corey LaJoie top 10, Ty Dillon top 10, Ricky Spinhouse top 10, Austin Dillon top 10, obviously the show bet, which is Brian's best bet. He has Suarez over Keselowski for the brand, and Austin Dillon over Tyler Reddick. So let's review the current odds and see if there's anything we want to add, as well as find some potential more top 10s and or head-to-heads to add to the card. So Ryan Blaney is your favorite at 12-1. Right behind him, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott. I think Elliott, we didn't use him in either of our lineups, Brian, but I do think he makes a lot of sense. He's obviously been one of the best drivers almost all year long. did well at the spring race. So
I'll just say though, like with somebody like him, knowing he's the most popular driver in the sport, he's probably more likely to have a very high roster percentage in lineups, especially at a super speedway. So it's probably, in my opinion, someone to just fade completely. Just hoping he doesn't win.
I think, obviously you don't want to use him and Bubba and Kyle Busch and like all the popular guys. But there's definitely room for him because he is.
Yeah, no, he's great.
Of the, we kind of round out the rest of the 12 to ones and dip. William Byron, you can get a 12. You can still get a 15 at Caesars apparently, which is interesting.
Pretty good.
Kyle Larson still hanging around. Bubba's still hanging around. DraftKings hanging at 18 is kind of nice.
I mean, we've seen it every single time we've gone to a super speedway or New Atlanta super speedway, like where odds don't really change after qualifying, just because they don't really mean much, especially when the majority of the days and the way that people finish is driven by the draft. I mean, and maybe a mistake or two on pit row, but it's accident avoidance and just who can draft and maneuver throughout the field the best.
Yep. Christopher Bell still hanging around some decent numbers. Kind of interesting.
I think he opened at 20, so I think he saw. No, he opened at 15 actually.
Yeah,
which is interesting that his odds would go down.
Yep, and I'm guessing it's just based on the amount of money he was not taking. Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Noah Gragson's the one who's seen a significant change. Obviously, being in the 48, he has a lot of talent. He also has a temper that will run hot, and he'll do some crazy stuff. But obviously, driving the Hendrick car. It'll be interesting to see how he performs, but his number has significantly adjusted.
If we think that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Eric Jones are kind of like wild cards every weekend as to whether or not they're going to crash, I have no premonitions about Noah Gragson not getting into a crash this weekend, especially driving in the Cup in Talladega in such a good car. Like I think he's not even going to realize what he's got underneath his foot and wind up just crushing somebody in front of him, pushing too hard and causing a giant wreck. So I have
let's hope he and Brad Keselowski don't end up anywhere near each other, because that feels like a ticking time bomb. I'm still good with
Austin the guys Dillon. That we have on outrights, mind you.
Yeah, I'm still good with Austin Dillon's numbers. I think those are interesting. Almirola's numbers are kind of the same, I think, or do they go up a little bit?
They're kind of around the same. I mean, most people, Almirola has dipped a little bit. He opened the week at 35 to 1. I mean, he's down, a couple of units, but it's nothing dramatic.
Yep. And Eric Jones has kind of settled at 28. So yeah, not a lot of change. The only real difference maker was Noah Gragson. Let's look at the top 10 market and see if there's anything interesting there. Then we'll look at head to heads and then we'll get the hell out of here. Obviously, like we talked about, it's risky starting with these guys, but they're priced really, really aggressively. And it's really, really tempting, but it's Talladega, anything can happen. But when we were betting these guys at -3 something, and it's now minus $1.20. Really interesting. Bubba Wallace -110 is a great bet. Cindric, I mean, all this is fine with me. It's all pretty similar.
I was just going to say, Ty Dillon actually dropped from plus 650 to 6 to 1 as his longest shot. So we got some value on Ty Dillon there.
Yeah, like Justin Haley, somebody I like, but like 2 to 1 for him to top 10 is.
Yeah, that's not. Short. I mean, it can happen, but with guys like that, you prefer kind of the Corey LaJoy number, like 3.8 to 1 or almost 4 to 1 odds. Gilliland's is not a bad number either at 6. Anybody in that 6 to 1 range is a good, small change bet. I have no interest in going to any of those guys at 12 to 1. I'm sorry. That's not happening again.
Yep. All right. Let's look at head to heads. All right. Logano, Hamlin still pretty even. Blaney, Logano still even, which is interesting.
I feel like there's a good market to go head to heads this week. I feel like this is kind of a race where you don't be like us and go heavy on top 10s, and instead you go with driver matchups because they're a lot easier to hit.
Yep, and you just need your driver to stay on the track longer than the other guy, even if they don't. If they crash in stage 2, but the other guy crashed in stage 1, then you're in the gold.
Apparently, you can still bet Alex Bowman to finish ahead of Christopher Bell.
Oh, you'll love it to see it. It's definitely going to get voided.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting to see this still even with Christopher Bell starting first and Kyle Busch starting 26th.
Ooh. There's an interesting one at the bottom there. Christopher Bell versus Austin Cindric. Bell's -105, Cindric -115. Cindric, in terms of, I think, finishing position, has finished better than Bell in all, I guess, 3 super speedway events so far this year. But Bell on the pole, he's probably overall a better driver.
It's interesting for sure.
I'm actually going to add that.
Do it.
Let's go.
Yeah, there's
not a lot this week to go on.
No. There's not a lot I want to jump on, so
I feel like if we check out like the weird wagers,
let's throw up DraftKings and see if there's like a top Toyota, top Chevy that looks appealing. Let's go to motorsports. Let's go to NASCAR. So Byron being top Chevy favorite is pretty interesting. Obviously, he's tied with Larson and Elliott, but it's very interesting.
All right, I got to add it. Eric Jones, top Chevy, 15-1. That's.
Yep, I could totally see a scenario where he's third and he gets top Chevy. I'm also going to add that.
This is the race where that kind of stuff can happen for sure. Hell, another one I'm going to add to the card here. Chris Buescher, top Ford. I mean, I think Ryan Blaney has a great shot to win the race, but Buescher also, the finishing results don't always show it, but he has a good shot to finish ahead of everyone else driving the Mustang. So, like 10-1 odds, that's ridiculous at a super speedway for a top finisher in a manufacturer.
Yeah, Almirola is interesting at that 10-1 number too. McDowell at 12. I think if you really trust Gragson, this is a better way to attack it, top Chevy. But it really feels like he has to.
I don't understand how they're automatically assuming that Gragson driving the Alex Bowman car should finish ahead of like Eric Jones and a few other names that have been in the Cup Series and are fairly successful. Austin Dillon.
It's also people probably see, he's driving 48. I want to bet him, and so they're just limiting their liability. Christopher Bell at 4-1 to be top Toyota is interesting.
I think the odds are too short. I do think it's interesting when you look at race winning manufacturer. Like, why wouldn't you just do a small change wager on Toyota at almost 3-1? Like, they have 2-3 guys that could legitimately win this race, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Bubba, Christopher Bell. Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Like, come on. I mean, they're definitely outgunned when it comes to just the amount of Toyotas they have.
I mean, we did this last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? We're like, why is this priced that way? The Fords have been great, and then the Ford wins. It was the Buescher race, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Let's see, anything interesting in the weekly? Any Hendrick to win the race at plus 250 is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Any JGR at 330.
Bubba Wallace and Chase Elliott inside the top 5 at 11-1.
That's kind of fun.
That's probably way better odds than parlaying those guys in top 5 finishes.
Yeah. Bubba and Suarez to both top 10. Chevy 1-2 finish. Suarez and Dillon both in the top 10.
All right, that's an interesting one right there. Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain to both finish inside the top 5. Even poo-pooing whatever that bet is, that just popped into my head as to which guy is Hamlin going to go after first? Chastain, who he had a beef with earlier in the year, and he clearly hasn't gotten him back yet, or William Byron?
Why choose when you can not take them both out? 14-1 on Christopher Bell. If you could just bet Christopher Bell's longer, and the odds are longer than that.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No. I guess that's just a flyer you can take if you think like one of the top guys. Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney to both finish in top 5 is 10-1. I'm gonna add that.
That's pretty good. I like both those guys. I mean, as long as it was Blaney 4th and Logano 5th, that'd be fantastic.
And by that you mean Logano 3rd and Blaney 4th.
Oh man.
Yeah. Larson and Elliott to both finish top 5, I think, is interesting.
I'm just extremely sad that the race is going to be on during football. Like,
yeah, it's not ideal, but I'm definitely going to prioritize Talladega this week because
I love this. I mean, some people hate it just because they think it's boring and there's not much skill involved. It's just people drafting, but I love the amount of movement we see.
Stenhouse and Eric Jones to both top 10 is 5-1.
I think right there, that shows you how much they think of those two guys in terms of their potential.
Yeah.
You would think that would be a lot longer.
Ooh, Larson, Elliott, Byron, and Gregson all finished top 10. Busch, Truex, Hamlin, and Bell all finished top 10 at 19-1. That's kind of interesting. That feels very live.
That does feel live, especially when all 4 of those guys, I think, are even money or worse to top 10. But I mean, the chances of 4 guys from the same team finishing inside the top 10 at this particular race when 2 of the guys are in the playoffs, I don't know.
I'm adding it for a quarter of a unit just for shits and gigs.
Hey, why not?
Logano, Blaney, and Cindric all the top 10 at 8-1. Yeah, I think that's good. All right, Brian, let's review our cards. Let's add another best bet, and let's get the hell out of here. So 3 outrights this week, trying to keep it tidy. Logano, Cindric, Eric Jones. Austin Dillon is also interesting to me. And then Bubba is also interesting to me, but I haven't bet either of them. Top 10 market, Eric Jones, Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric, Michael McDowell, Bubba Wallace, Corey LaJoie, and Joey Logano. Logano over Blaney. Eric Jones as the top Chevy at 15-1. I added Toyota wins the race at plus 280. Logano and Blaney to both top 5 at 5-1. And the Joe Gibbs team to top 10. All of them top 10 at 19-1 is my card for the week. That's
ridiculous.
Break down your card, Brian, and give the people a best bet.
All right, so beginning off the card here with my outrights, I got Ryan Blaney at 13-1, Bubba Wallace 18-1, Eric Jones at 30-1, and then top 10 markets pretty heavy as well. Eric Jones the top 10, Corey LaJoie the top 10, Ty Dillon the top 10, Ricky Spinhouse the top 10, Austin Dillon the top 10. The show bet and my best bet from earlier in the week, Ryan Blaney to finish ahead of Penske teammate Joey Logano. Daniel Suarez over Brad Keselowski. I felt very strongly about that earlier in the week. And then Austin Dillon to finish ahead of Tyler Reddick. And I added today Christopher Bell to finish ahead of Austin Cindric. And then I also added 2 top manufacturers. Eric Jones is top Chevy 15-1 and Buescher at top Ford at 10-1.
I like it. What is your best bet?
Man, this one's hard. Like, I would almost want to go back to Blaney over Joey Logano, but there's too much there's too much riding on that already this week because I do think that both of them are going to run pretty strongly here. I'm actually going to go back to the board and add it again, but that's going to be Daniel Suarez over Brad Keselowski, which is actually at minus 102 right now over at FanDuel. So I'm going to add that for 2 more units to make it basically a 5-unit play as my best bet going into tomorrow.
I like it a lot. So FanDuel has a nice number for me. I'm going to go with the pole sitter and take Christopher Bell, the top 10 at minus 110. That's just I know it's Talladega. I know he does stupid things, and this is probably going to end up haunting me. But Christopher Bell, top 10 at minus 110 for 5 friggin' units.
Woo!
Let's get feisty. So I'm probably going to do well on my card overall, but then I'm probably going to miss both my best bets and
Yep.
end up being a bloodbath. But that's okay. Brian Twining, this was fun. Obviously, you guys enjoy Talladega. It should be an amazing race. It should be a lot of fun. We'll be back on Wednesday, or I guess Thursday, in your feed to recap all that was Talladega and get you set for the next race. And as I mentioned last time, Brian and I are going to be in Vegas for the playoff race. So if you are going to be there, hit us up on Twitter. Let us know. We'd love to come say hello. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. We're creeping ever close to 500 subs. We'd really like to get there before the end of the season.
Let's get there before the end of the season, please.
Yes. Help us. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the race, and we'll talk.